Growing up, I was always aware there were numerous scientific miracles revealed in the Qur'an. I had always felt strengthened by these undeniable truths, but I was never aware there were those who said these were actually scientific errors. In the next few videos, I would like to delve into each of these scientific inaccuracies to find out the truth. A person very close to me first brought up that Aristotle had already discovered that embryos were formed from a blood clot, and that the Qur'an simply copies this knowledge, which was reflected in Surah 23:14. This initially shook me to my core, for I had always been told that the scientific miracles in the Qur'an were ahead of its time, mentioning things never before studied or understood. Let's take a closer look and find out the truth for ourselves. In Surah 23:14, I'll spare you the Arabic since I don't speak Arabic and I don't want to butcher it. It says in the English translation, "Then we developed the drop into a clinging clot, then developed the clot into a lump of flesh, then developed the lump into bones, then clothed the bones with flesh. Then we brought it into being as a new creation. So blessed is Allah, the best of creators." According to the International Journal of Developmental Biology, Aristotle, who lived in the 4th century CE, was where embryology really began, with his research into chick embryos, and detailed in his work Generation of Animals. According to an academic peer-reviewed article written by Sabiha Sadat and published in the National Library of Medicine, Aristotle thought the fetus was formed in the uterus from a coagulum, meaning mass or clump, of blood and semen from menstrual blood. Let's dive in. First, we need to be clear on what Arabic word is used in the Quran. Unfortunately, I don't speak Arabic, so forgive me if I butcher the pronunciation. According to Google, the Arabic word used in the Quran is alaka, which has multiple meanings. 1. A leech, 2. A suspended thing, and 3. A blood clot or clinging clot. In Surah 96:1-2 from Qur'an.com, it translates as humans were created from a clinging clot. Are there any actual scientific studies done on the subject that aligns with this thought? Well, yes, actually. Professor Keith L. Moore was a professor in the Division of Anatomy and founding member of the American Association of Clinical Anatomists, or AACA. He wrote The Developing Human, where he delves into the comparisons between the Quran and scientific research regarding embryology. His conclusion: the Quranic verses on human development accurately describe stages of embryonic development which align with modern embryology. The key stages discussed in the Quran. 1. Nutfa, meaning a small drop of liquid which refers to the fertilized egg or zygote. 2. Alaka, already discussed as a leech-like clot. You can see in the photo the comparison of a human embryo to an actual leech. It looks very similar to me. Here's an example of that same leech-like clot hanging from the womb and benefiting from the resources taken from the womb, just like a leech. The next stage is the mutka. Sorry for my pronunciation, which means a chewed substance or lump of flesh. You can see in the photo an example of the embryo in this stage being similar to teeth marks. Also described is the bone and muscle from Surah 23:14, again, which refers to bones forming and then being clothed with muscles, which Professor Moore found to be accurate. This last one blew my mind. It mentions the 3 veils of darkness from Surah 39:6, where it says, "He creates you in the wombs of your mothers in stages, one after another, in 3 layers of darkness. That is, Allah, your Lord. To Him belongs the dominion. There is no deity except Him. Then how are you deluded?" The 3 layers are described as the anterior abdominal wall, the uterine wall, and the amniochorionic membrane. This has been widely accepted across the board in the scientific arena, including by Professor Keith Moore. Now, let's discuss the 2 major criticisms I came across during my research. The first one is muscle forms before bone. Lots of critics say this is a scientific inaccuracy and proves the Qur'an has an error. So how can it be from God? Well, according to Professor Moore, cartilage, which is considered pre-bone, forms first, then muscle. He deems the Qur'an accurate on this point. Islamic rebuttals of this critique are that this is a general description, not a detailed embryological textbook, and that the verses highlight distinct transformations, not precise timing of the details. The next critique I will go over is the Qur'an copied from Aristotle. Now, given all the sources and details presented, not once did the Qur'an mention anything forming from menstrual blood, like what Aristotle believed. This idea, which influenced reproductive ideas for nearly 2,000 years, even being integrated into Christian theology, is scientifically inaccurate and not reflected in the Qur'an. Beyond that, his theory was riddled with many inaccuracies as reflected on the screen, such as the more attractive the male principle, the stronger likelihood it would produce a male, and a weaker one would produce a female. Another interesting fact is that these embryonic stages presented in the Qur'an could not have come from 7th century science, as the understanding of bone formation and muscles coming after would not have been understood until the invention of the microscope in the late 16th century and the eventual systematic scientific classification of embryonic stages not beginning until the 19th and early 20th centuries. My conclusion: if the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, copied from earlier sources, why were more inaccuracies not reflected in the Qur'an? And why is the only inaccuracy based on a simple preference of what constitutes a bone coming before flesh? What do you think?